AI is rewriting the rules of every industry. Software, finance, legal. Nothing is safe from this wave of disruption. But in the middle of all this chaos, one asset rises as the perfect partner to AI's explosion: Bitcoin. Jordi Visser just connected the dots in a way that will change how you see the future forever. If you've ever wondered how all of this comes together, if you've asked yourself what role Bitcoin truly plays in an AI-driven world, stay to the end. Because the clarity he delivers and his prediction for Bitcoin will absolutely blow your mind.
Bitcoin is very much an energy asset. And the energy in the community is very low, but the energy in the software community is very low. I mean, NVIDIA, Meta, Microsoft, I go through the entire Magnificent Seven. Every single one of them, as of when I came over here to see you, is down at least 15% year to date. So with Bitcoin, it's kind of hanging around 68 to 72,000, while all of these other names that people own significantly in their portfolio are going down. The part I disagree with you on, you mentioned the ETFs. The ETFs are very important. Like, we still have money flowing into them, into a bear market. That's good, because that means they're increasing their allocation. The one thing about private wealth managers that not enough people give credit for, they will allocate more money into things that have fallen down. At this point, I literally can't say this enough for people to accept. You need software and growth assets to not work. Bitcoin, at the end of the day, has a narrative about growth. We invest in it because it could be $1 trillion. I believe it. Okay, well, it's only 70,000. I don't believe Microsoft is going to go up that much. I don't believe Google's going to go up that much. They already did that. It's very hard for people to find assets that will do that now. And so when you're looking for an asset that can give the returns you need, and I highly recommend people understand that a pension fund needs to make returns. Their liabilities grow every year, especially if people live longer. So when you've heard people talk about extension of life, which is a part of AI as well, you need more long duration assets in your portfolio, and private credit's not working, private equity's not working, VC is not working, software is not working, and I think AI is disrupting all of them. So I say this with not just enthusiasm. I believed that this would happen at some point. I just didn't believe in the manner that it would happen, but I thought software would go sideways while Bitcoin would go higher. Instead, software fell violently. Bitcoin went with it as a direct overlay. But now coming out of this, I think we're already starting to see the signs that it's going to outperform that. And when things really get good and the energy is good, all of those retail people that you like to see that are going to buy your book, they are going to be enthusiastic and full of energy again. I think there will be a fairly high percentage of them that'll be spot Bitcoin. And I, the reason I believe this, and this is another positive that's going to happen to Bitcoin this year, I'm so sick of the quantum is going to break Bitcoin thing. And this will be the year that ends forever. And the reason it'll end forever this year is because agent swarms are going to break the ridiculous security that banks have. And this is the issue that will pop up. There will be hackings this year because of OpenClaw and the ability for people to create all these AI agents to literally send billions of them to break into stuff. Once that happens, every single bank will have to move to cryptography to some degree. Like, they're going to have to go to more security. That Bitcoin is a better security place. And so if you have your money stashed and it's in a bank account in JP Morgan or whatever bank you want, you are at risk for a hacking. And then you can hope that the government's going to give you money. But we learned with Silicon Valley Bank, that's not so easy if everyone takes their money out. So I've lived in this world where I think there's so many positive things that are going to happen with Bitcoin. And I do think spot Bitcoin for people rather than the ETF will become important. And I think it'll be easier for people to do, because then you're even more secure against quantum. If you don't have all your money sitting in an ETF and you have some of it sitting in something more secure, that'll get easier and easier and easier to do over time.
Well, how do you position for things like this as an investor? Because we've seen so much volatility. Right now, Bitcoin's ticking back up and gold is suddenly underperforming. I think that there's just so much chaos when it comes to the markets, and a lot of people are sitting in cash waiting for it to dip even more so they can buy in. Like, how do you see it?
Okay, so this is, I live my world in AI, and everything that I'm doing for people that I've known a long time on the Wall Street side, my message to them is very clear. Before Iran happened, software stocks had collapsed. The disruption from AI was becoming a real thing. I'm not sure you and I talked about this last time, so I'll include it here, and then you can go whatever direction you want. But software falls, and then financial stocks fall, and financial stocks fall because they have debt related to software. AI is a very disruptive force, and it is creating uncertainty for all investments out 3 years. I've written so many papers in my Substack over the course of the last year and a half of doing this, but even before this, that the number one time when people should be looking for Bitcoin to finally get what it deserves. And what it deserves is money from traditional investors who are increasing their Bitcoin allocation from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We all know that's the end game. Okay, well, for that to happen, no one's going to wake up and go, I like the story of Bitcoin. I think we've learned at this point, you can write as many books as you want, and eventually they'll read them. But right now, they have a very simple thing. When do people eat food they don't like if they don't have any other food? They have plenty of alternatives to Bitcoin to make money. And at the end of the day, people invest to make money. And so a store of value is a very funny phrase. A home is a store of value, not just gold, like everything. You put money into something, and then you hope in the future when you need it, it'll be worth something. I believe when software stocks fell, Bitcoin fell with it. I thought Bitcoin would be much higher last year, but I also didn't think software would collapse. Software collapsed because the disruption from AI became real. I think the greatest thing for Bitcoin is I don't think software is investable again, ever. And so those are growth assets, and Bitcoin is a growth asset, meaning I'm betting that in the future, this will be worth more money. With commodities, those are cyclical. I believe silver is going higher, but then eventually, at some point it goes back down again. That's not what I see in Bitcoin. And I always believe that eventually the investors of the world will be forced in their growth bucket to go, well, I need to have some money there because it's working. So by the end of this year, I think what'll happen is we will get to the market and earnings are still good. The economy's fine. Even with inflation going higher and this little point in oil, eventually it'll roll back down and the AI trade will continue. At that point, when we get the next leg of the equity market finding a bid, which I think will happen sometime probably, I think the lows and the sentiment will be the worst by May. And then I think we're going to start this up. Bitcoin has done very well. So that is my my optimistic story is I think by the end of this year, people are going to be looking around going, it's the best growth asset in the world. And that's a good thing.
Something bigger is happening beneath the surface. And Jordi Visser is connecting dots most people aren't even looking at. Because it's not just about risk, it's about a world on the edge of transformation. On one side, he highlights a silent but massive threat, the China-Taiwan tension. Not because it's likely, but because if it happens, it resets everything: supply chains, semiconductors, global stability. It's the kind of shock that doesn't just shake markets. It pushes the world backwards. But then he flips to opportunity, and this is where it gets serious. He's pointing to something bigger than markets: the explosion of AI. Speed is accelerating beyond human comprehension. Systems, jobs, entire industries, all being rewritten. And here's his core message. In a world that's changing this fast, you don't want assets that can be disrupted. You want scarcity. That's why, in his view, everything is pointing back to Bitcoin.
There's a reason why I decided not to work in the fiat world. There's a reason why I spend my time with the Bitcoin community. I've written a paper about the best macro trade I've ever seen in risk reward. So everyone has read the IPO piece, which I still subscribe to and believe that we're going through it. But the one that was more important for me, I have always spent my time thinking about what the future is going to look like. I don't see a world with the speed happening in artificial intelligence, with AI agents, with humanoids, with everything, and us still being on the guardrails of settling a check in days. That doesn't make any sense. The speed of the world is accelerating dramatically. And since November, late November, it's accelerated significantly. And for people who don't follow AI close enough, Opus 4.5 changed the world. It accelerated artificial intelligence to the way that you're now seeing it, to the point that it disrupted all of these companies, not just software companies, financial companies, trucking companies. You've heard all the stories. That will continue to happen. And eventually humanoids will do the same thing to manufacturing companies and Caterpillar and all this, because humanoids change the entire equation for physical side. I was at a dinner the other night and I said to people, you have to get in your head, we are not the top of the food chain anymore. That is a huge transition that A super intelligent being that is physically stronger and smarter than the smartest person who's ever lived will be here in 5 years. You cannot fathom the changes that are going to happen. So when that goes back to Bitcoin, the world doesn't survive with companies and stocks. It survives with assets that don't have a story that can be disrupted. It gets into scarcity. And this is the point where Michael Saylor and I agree on this. At some point, the world has been about the opposite of scarcity. Economics is based on scarcity. We need scarce assets. We need things that actually have it because we can print everything with artificial intelligence. Picasso's, whatever we want. We can print anything that we want within 5 to 10 years. So that just means Bitcoin is the best opportunity, not because it's the best asset, but because it's the one that doesn't get destroyed by AI.